تحفز النفس الكريمة تبتغي الجنات بحلول شهر الصوم والرحمات والرضوان.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In discussing the fifth juz of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the initial pages speaks about the social structure of the Muslim Ummah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discusses in detail the rights of men and women and the family structure. A conclusive ayah that describes the social structure, especially from a financial or fiscal point of view, is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, or the men are protectors, custodians, guardians upon women, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made virtuous, granted virtue, some over some, وَبِمَا أَنْفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ, and because they spend from their wealth. This is an established social and economic structure in Islam, that where it comes to the betterment of the home, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the male of the household. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses ar-rijal rather than specifically referring to the husband. In the case of a household, a family that is headed, let's say, by a father who is in charge of his children, including adult daughters, it now becomes the responsibility of the father to maintain and to take care of them from a financial point of view. Thereafter, once a young daughter is now married, it becomes the responsibility of her husband. In turn, if the husband is not present, then there are other male members of the family, be it sons, be it uncles, be it even up to nephews and cousins in some instances, depending upon the absence of certain family members, that become ultimately responsible for the well-being of a woman in a Muslim social structure. And this is something that should be highly emphasized regardless of the time that we are living in, that this is the established social structure and construct of Muslims, that the men are responsible for the upkeep of women, and it is never ever the need and the necessity of a woman to venture out of the precincts of her home unless there is a situation of dire necessity and need, and in those instances it is allowed under specific circumstances. Other than that, taking care of the welfare of any Muslim woman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the men in her life a qawwam, a collective responsibility of upkeep and nurturing. Yes, we live in a time that where people underscore the value and the importance of this particular social construct, considering it to be secondary in the pursuit of worldly means, money, comforts, etc. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bases His decree not on our desire for worldly comforts, but upon what is required and the necessity of this world in order to live and in order to survive. After discussing the social fabric of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that juz, in the fifth juz, the discussion goes on to the people of the book, and thereafter it refers or reverts back to the people of kufr and disbelief. There is one particular ayah that is particularly necessary for us to discuss, especially in the times that we are living in, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تُؤَدُّوا الْأَمَانَاتِ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهَا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands you that you give over, you hand over, you fulfill trusts ila ahliha, to the custodians of that trust. وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ, and when you are a hakim, a judge between people, أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ, that you pass judgment in fairness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights these two very important aspects of society, which as the time becomes closer and closer towards Qiyamah, will become more and more difficult upon not just the Muslim Ummah, but amana and trust in general will disappear from the lives of people. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam even described this disappearance of trust, that trust will remain firm in a person. Then a generation or a group will come and trust will be lost, and then nothing will remain except its athar or its effect, referring to the fact that as time goes on, people will become less and less trustworthy. Sahaba radiallahu anhum, who were narrators of the ahadith on amanat and trust, would even at their time, and remember their time was still the time of the best of generations, would say that I would not trust except so and so person, because of how deficient trust had become in the ummah. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alludes to the necessity of trust, that you hand over trust to the custodians of that trust. When we refer to amanat or trusts, we should also take note of the fact that the plural is used of amanat, because there are a number of categories of amanah, of trust. We should not only focus upon the worldly trusts by way of money, property, investments that are possibly handed over to us to look after or to rightfully invest in, but also secrets, conversations, gatherings wherein a conclusion was now reached, but it is expected that the contents and the discussions of that gathering remain secret, also fall under the category of trust or amanat. Hence, it is a broad warning and a caution unto the ummah in entirety, that it does not mean that if anybody has left money by you or has given you a mandate to invest and look after their money, now only the ambit of amanat and trust is directed towards you, and you are now a custodian of a trust. But if a person was in a gathering, or even a parent or someone close, disclosed items that were to be kept a secret, they fall under the category of amanat. In the very same ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of how important it is for a person to be just, especially at a time when they are made to judge between people. It has always been an issue of mankind, and it will remain a situation and a concern right till the end of time. And it will become more and more dire as we head towards Qiyamah, that a person remains a just individual, free from bias. We are all at risk of becoming or remaining or being biased individuals. Sometimes it's a friend of mine. Sometimes it's a relative of mine. Sometimes a particular person, I owe a favor to them, what is also referred to as an ihsan. The ihsan or the favor of that person is a yoke on my shoulders which nobody knows about. Now they have come and they wish for me to be a judge or to decide in a matter between them and another party. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands with justice. If a person feels that they are not in a position to be judged or to be appointed as a mediator or a judge in any matter, because of either the one of the two parties they are owed a favor, or it could be possible that they are related to one or two of the parties, then they should recuse themselves, and they should ensure that these two particular individuals or a series of parties receive the best possible type of service by way of judgment. Juz 5 ends with another very pertinent and important discussion for our time, wherein the Munafiqeen or the hypocrites of Madinatul Munawwara are discussed. Madinatul Munawwara had a number of communities. The city of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a number of active communities. One set of communities were the visible ones, the Muslims, the Yahud, the few pagan individuals that remained for a while, the travelers who would come to buy and sell. Many of them would be Christian travelers or Nabateans from the northern part of Arabia, which is today Syria, the Levant, etc. Then there was a crypto community. And when I say crypto, I mean a community that would attempt to shield and hide their real intentions and what was their purpose. And they were the Munafiqeen, or the hypocrites of Madinatul Munawwara, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consistently refers to. The discussions of the Munafiqeen appear no less than 270 times directly or indirectly in the Quran Kareem, primarily in ayat that are related to Madinatul Munawwara, because that is where they existed in abundance. First of all, with regards to Munafiqeen or hypocrites, the reference that has been made in the Quran is in reference to the community of Madinatul Munawwara, but Nifaq and hypocrisy will very likely exist right till the end of time. That where you have a person who claims one thing on the visible, but is a crypto hidden individual by way of their nefarious intentions. Now, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the community directly, it is in reference to the Munafiqeen of Madinatul Munawwara. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of Juz 5 says that Innal Munafiqeen يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهَ وَهُوَ خَادِعُهُمْ, that they attempt to deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now waylays their plan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes a number of qualities regarding the people of Nifaq, which may remain consistent throughout all of times, and a person should evaluate that whether these qualities exist inside them or not. It may not necessarily render a person a munafiq and out of the pale of Islam, but nonetheless they are the qualities of nifaq. And in the ayat of the Quran Kareem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about one very blatant feature of them. وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالًا, that when they stand up for salah, they stand up in a lazy way. Now the ulama explain that what does it mean by a lazy way? Because some of these munafiqun would be front saf individuals. Some of them would be very regular performers of salah, with this fear and this concern that we must not be uncovered. But it is in reference to an internal description of that munafiq or that hypocrite, that they would, although outwardly it seems that all the qualities of devotion, khushu and khudu would be present inside them, but they would be hollow inside. And this is a quality of nifaq, yura'un an-nas, that they attempt to show off to the people that we are here with you. We are here as far as the Salaah crowd is concerned. وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, and they do not remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except a little. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam further alludes to greater and other qualities of nifaq, of hypocrisy, that a person should consistently analyze their lives, that these qualities of nifaq should not be present inside me. That when a munafiq is trusted in any way, they deceive their trust. The quality of their language, that وَإِذَا خَصَمَ, that when they are now engaged in let's say a dispute or a fight of sorts, then they resort to foul language, they resort to decrepit type of language. And it is the quality of nifaq and hypocrisy that they will lie, they will deceive. Hence a person should be ever watchful that these qualities never ever appear inside them. And if they do so, and if they are detected, they are immediately arrested, and a person does not allow them to develop in any way. In conclusion of Juz 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of the terrible punishment that is in store for the munafiqun in particular. Innal munafiqeen fi darkil asfali minan nar. وَلَن تَجِدَ لَهُمْ نَصِيرًا. Certainly the hypocrites will be in the lowest rung or the lowest level of Jahannam. And وَلَن تَجِدَ, you will never find for them any helper whatsoever, referring to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the hottest and the most punishable place, the place that will afford the greatest amount of impacted punishment upon those who are munafiqeen. And our respected teachers would explain it in this way, that if you have a person who masquerades as a police officer but is a real crook, when the genuine law, the real law, catches hold of that person, they will treat them more severely than as if they had treated a crook who was open about their criminality. Why? Because this person, in addition to their criminality, proved to be a traitor to the very same system that they were supposed to upkeep or at least be responsible for. This was the nature of the Munafiqun, that they masqueraded as Muslims. So they were responsible in upkeeping a particular code, but they not only failed to upkeep that code, but they actively worked to destroy the code of deen that had become established in Madinatul Munawwara. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even says regarding the Munafiqun as well, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَأَصْلَحُوا وَاعْتَصَمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. Except those people who make tawbah from their ways of hypocrisy, and they rectify and they hold on to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, referring to His deen, وَأَخْلَصُوا, and they purify their deen for the sake of Allah. Those people are counted amongst the believers, and it is anticipated that many of the munafiqun, although they may have remained as hypocrites in the initial days of Madinatul Munawwara, eventually made tawbah, resorted to the correct belief structure, and they now entered genuinely into the fold of Islam. The actual number is unknown. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but it is understood that many of the male and female munafiqun in time made tawbah from their ways, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purified Madinatul Munawwara and the community of Muslims from the threat of Nifaq later on towards the end of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's stay in Madinatul Munawwara. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us benefit from these important lessons. Ameen.
واكتب لنا أن ندخل الجنات بالريان